Call this meeting to order. This time I'd like to ask our superintendent to lead us in our prayer and prayer.
Our Heavenly Father, we are grateful for the blessings of life. You bless us far beyond our needs, and we're so appreciative. We're thankful for this school board and for the administrators, for our faculty and staff and the students, parents, for our communities. Be with us as we make decisions tonight. May they be in the best interest of our school system and our kids. Be with us throughout this night. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Superintendent. Well, all of you, each of you. The first item on the agenda is Disability Awareness Week, Dr. Hall. Hey, how you doing, Doc?
Hello, Chairman. Good evening, board members, Superintendent Hastings. And we're really very nice to have you join us, representing David Delaney. Welcome and thank you for being here this evening. We have some visitors. We have no visitors. No visitors. If we had visitors, we would welcome them as well. We don't have any visitors. It is a great pleasure that I stand before you as we recognize and celebrate Disability Awareness Week. Some of the activities that are being held in our school is that Disability Awareness Week has been infused in the content areas at various schools. Wilson High School is conducting a book study, Out of My Mind by Sharon Draper. It's a good read, it's an easy read. I'm currently reading that book as well. And so I'm happy to be here. One of the things that we're doing, and we've done this for several years, is that each day my secretary sends out a disability fact. And so we have our instructional staff in all of our schools, our district staff is participating, even our superintendent. And we thank you for being a player as we do this each and every day.
I answered that question correctly, too.
Yes, it wasn't one of the choices, Mr. Hastings. It's not a winner on that day. Continue to play. We're going to play this Disability Fact Day every day through the 15th of this month because Disability Awareness is the first 2 weeks. The first winner to respond to the question of the day receives a $25 voucher to be used for supplies, materials, for their furniture. All the winners for 15 days, name will be placed in a box, and a drawing will be held. I will tell you this year the funding is very limited, so therefore we will not be purchasing a smartboard as we did last year, but it will be something nice for a teacher, a staff member to use with their students. So that will happen on October 15th. And so you have a copy of the PowerPoint here, so we'll go through that very quickly. As I said, the first 2 weeks of disability awareness has been recognized by our governor. It's an opportunity to provide additional information and knowledge, if you will, regarding students with disabilities, and it was signed into law in 2008. A quick review of our history, what has brought us here today. In 1965, it was our first Bureau of Education. That position now is titled the Office of Special Education, and our current director is Dr. Melanie Musgrove. She's based and housed in Washington, D.C. We use the term OSEP a lot. We use a lot of acronyms for education, and OSEP is the Office of Special Education Programs. They drive what we do federally. They drive what we do each and every day. In 1975, the Education of All Handicapped Children Act, known at that time as Public Law 94-142, and now that has been revised and revisited, and so is IDEA, Individuals with Disability Education Act. In 1997, IDEA was reauthorized to include students with disabilities in state and district-wide assessments, and also requires a transition plan that begins at age 14. I will tell you in our school system, transition plan is required at age 14, but many times, depending on the needs of the students, we'll start that conversation collaborating with agencies earlier than the age 14. And it makes sense to do that because many times our students are placed on a waiting list because there are limited resources for them. We want to have things in place when students graduate from high school. So sometimes we do revisit that prior to the age of 14. Fast forward to the 21st century. In 2001, our legislators passed the John McCain Scholarship for students with disabilities. We have a number of students in our district whose families take advantage of that opportunity to receive a John McCain Scholarship, and this applies to all students with disabilities, and it also includes our students with Section 504 plan. That came into play about 3 years ago. 2004, IDA was reauthorized, and changes in accountability at the state and local levels, requiring that adequate instruction and interventions be provided to students with disabilities, and self-determination. One of the things that we really emphasize, especially at the high school level, in preparation for our students' transition to post-secondary education, is the ability to self-advocate. Because when they transition to colleges or universities, they have to self-identify, they have to advocate for the needs that they need and support. Unlike in public education, we're required by law to provide those services. 2006, the Alton Assessment. Remember that the Florida Alton Assessment is only for a small population of students, less than 1% of our total student population, or administered the Alton Assessment that aligns with the FCAT. So for the Florida Alton Assessment, it's only for students that are significantly cognitive disabled. We have approximately 45 students in our district currently that meets this criteria. Their curriculum is modified. It aligns with the state standards, but it's at their level of complexity. In 2007, legislation, once again, expanded the eligibility for the Pell Grant to allow students that are intellectually disabled to be able to attend post-secondary programs. Many times the students are not seeking a degree. They what we call audit the class. They participate like their non-disabled college peers. Many of them live on campuses. We have the University of South Florida at St. Pete, University of North Florida. Those are examples of where we have intellectually disabled students attending college. College for them looks very different many times than what we typically expect when a student is attending college. But they have an opportunity to experience the lifestyle of being on the campus. I will tell you and share with you that in Duval County, they work very closely with vocational rehabilitation to help finance. They use their FTE funding. These are students that are in their senior year, what we will call dual enrollment. So they use their FTE funding in their school district, coupled with outside agencies to help support the cost for them to live on campus and also the course of tuition. 2007, and this is still current, we have the FCAT waiver. I guess now we'll call it the AIR waiver, since FCAT has gone away, and we have the new assessment coming on board. But this is an opportunity for students who are pursuing a standard diploma, who have shown proficiency in the class setting with class assessments, but for whatever reason, because the FCAT or the AIR, which is going to be quite rigorous, does not truly measure what they can do. So a team of professionals, the teacher, the LEA, guidance counselor, and all, they sit at the table, they review the data, and they determine if an FCAT waiver should be awarded. And we have really, in this district, taken advantage of that opportunity for our students. I wish it was an opportunity for all of our students. Some people are just not good test takers. It does not mean that they do not know or have the information or can demonstrate proficiency, but it's only afforded to students with disabilities with an IEP. That still stands to be our way of work in our district. In 2011, Senate Bill 4, end of course exams. Same will be true. Our students with disabilities have the opportunity afforded to them to have their EOC waiver if they do not pass the EOC. They have to take it at least once. Then the team can reconvene and waive the EOC, again, if the student has shown proficiency in the classwork. 2014, just a few months ago, Senate Bill 850 not only impacted students with disabilities, but it also impacted non-disabled students as well. A student with a disability, and I've been sharing this along the way because I knew it was coming down the pipe. There's a one pathway to a standard diploma for the most significant. It's really important because you, as board members, you may be getting calls from parents hearing about this one diploma and how can I get that for my child. It's not for every student with a disability. It's only for the most significant cognitive disabled student. These are students who are currently receiving instruction on the access points. It's access to the state standards. It's a modified curriculum. The level of complexity is rigorous for this population of students. Many times the students are intellectually disabled, not always, but many times they are. We have approximately 20 students, because this law came into play July 1st, effective July 1st, that will be reconvening their IEPs, because the special diploma, as we've known for a number of years, no longer exists, effective July 1st. This law applies to current ninth graders, this cohort, current ninth graders. They have two options. They can pursue a standard diploma, and the family and the team have to identify a designated merit or scholar designation. If they choose not to go that route, I can't imagine any family saying no to that opportunity. But the other option is a certificate of completion, which we all know is not a diploma. So this law affects current ninth graders. Special diploma is not an option for them any longer. Our current 10th, 11th, and 12th grade students, they've been grandfathered in. So they have an option of pursuing, we have to reconvene those IEP meetings as well, give those families that have students in 10th, 11th, and 12th grade an opportunity to choose a standard diploma and merit or scholar or merit designation. Or they can continue with the special diploma track. I'm giving you a short version. Senate Bill 850 lays out all what I've shared with you, but I just want to share with our board members because many times you do receive those calls. I've received those calls. And the calls that I'm receiving are not the parents whose children are under the program of significant cognitive disabled. It's the parents who say that the state standards is too rigorous for my child. But the alternate assessment is not rigorous enough. They're kind of like in the middle. We refer to those kids like the 2% children. What about those kids? What about my kid? Well, our legislators have said this does not apply to that population. So for that population of students, they have to pursue a standard diploma like any other student, or they receive a certificate of completion. Yeah. Now there is a strong advocacy group in the Miami area that was on a conference call that I participated in, and I will see that this is going to be challenged because a lot of parents are saying that's discriminatory. It's discriminating against a certain population of students. If you're going to provide this opportunity for students with disabilities, significant cognitive disabled students, it should be an option for all students. So I guess we should stay tuned with their parents who are not very happy with this ruling.
Keep us posted on people that are challenging that.
Of course, there are high expectations for all of our students in June 2010. Florida Standards, once upon a time called the Common Core, was released, and our students with disabilities are exempt. Remember, it's only 1% of our population. That's not very many students. And in 2013, our students with disabilities are expected to be challenged to excel just like their non-disabled students on the Florida standards.
That's pretty tough. That's what I get a lot of calls on. There's a lot of issues and things, and it's very hard on parents.
It is.
And these kids really do have a disability, and they have to go with the same standards, and so it's so hard.
It's very difficult. It's very difficult for our non-disabled students. It's more rigorous and difficult for our students that come to us that we identify and they meet criteria for a special program. And that's why it's really important that we continue, as all the training that we provide our schools and our teachers to be very diverse. Because the standards does not tell us how to teach the standards. It doesn't tell us what curriculum we can use. We just have to meet expectations. And that may look very different for a lot of our kids. And that's why our district and I continue to support University Design for Learning, because it gives students an opportunity to show various ways of what they know, what they can demonstrate. The pencil paper 25 questions may be good for Johnny, but Sally may need something different. Sally may need technology. Sally may need to do a PowerPoint. She may need to be able to express and show her proficiency in a different way. So it does challenge even the educators to have a different way of work, a variety of their delivery model. To stand and lecture, I do, you listen, now allowing kids to do. We're working toward that in this district. I think we're doing a really good job. There's more work to be done because it changes your whole philosophy in terms of teaching and teaching to a diverse group. Many of the things that we do for children with disabilities is also good for all kids.
That's right, I agree with that. 100%.
And good teaching is good teaching, no matter how you slice it. So why don't we do what's good for all kids? And I think it does help our teachers too, because they have a lot of work to do. I mean, that goes without saying. When you have a class of 18 students, and half or 3/4 of those students are struggling, whether they be disabled or not, we have to do something different. So looking at the whole and saying, what can I provide every kid? There's no law that says that we can't provide accommodations to non-disabled students. But we have a law that says that we're required to do so as determined by the IEP. So let's just do what's good for all kids. And everyone benefits from that. But it's a challenge. I agree with you. That's why I encourage my colleagues who fuss about legislation when they have an opportunity to speak and share and contact their legislators, because they don't know what they don't know. They hear the parents' perspective about what they want for their kids. They rarely sometimes hear from us, so to speak. And so when these laws are passed, it's based on their knowledge base, and they don't have the full picture. And I think a lot of times, this new legislation that we see is those unintended consequences that they didn't even think that it was going to roll this way in terms of, in this case, the one pathway to a standard diploma. And we have to mirror those requirements as well. And what I mean by that, for example, if a parent chooses the merit, I'm going to visual, the merit designation, that requires an additional industry certification course. That means somehow we have to mirror that in the ESC world for this population, something very similar. Another requirement for this is an online course. I recommended that it be an access course, a course that's appropriate for this population. Not a gen ed online course, that would not be appropriate at all. One other thing that the requirement at this moment in time, it has not been passed fully in terms of the course offerings, but one of the things that we've been discussing is that this is also going to require students, districts to be obligated to find employment, paid employment for these students for one semester. I shared my comments about that requirement. And I will share with you that I think that we cannot require that of school districts to guarantee employment for students for one semester paid employment. We can't pull out to that. So we'll see how that plays out as well. The online course, of course. But we have to mirror world languages. I had a conversation just 2 days ago with our bureau chief. I said, what is that going to look like? Are we going to require this population of students to take foreign languages? We don't know what the end results are going to be. But I'm just giving you examples of it's going to be rigorous for this population, but it's going to be on a modified scale. talk about what kind of support we have in place. Of course, the accommodations have to be implemented with fidelity, consistently. I just spoke to the University of Zion for Learning. That's good for every kid, student engagement. Digital materials, we have a free service, NIMAS, where we can request digital materials for our students who need it. We talked about assistive technology this time last year. I invited Teresa Pindon, if you remember, our local assistive technology specialist, to share with you all the array of assistive technology. And I would share with you that because of the rigor of the state standards, because of the rigor that we're anticipating with the AIR assessment, our teachers, our support staff are pulling together even more now than they've ever before. Because they want the best for all the children. We really do. But we have to work with what we have, and our parents are sending their most precious jewel to us. And our state is tying our hands about what we can and cannot do and what the requirements are. But we have some things in place in our district. And of course, last but not least, all that we do, we are preparing our students to be college and career ready, as I shared previously. I have a quick, brief video clip that I want to share with you. Let me tell you a little bit about it as my friend set it up for me. It's titled Including Samuel. Have you heard that term? Have you heard this video, this documentary, if you will? Dan Habit is a photojournalist, and his son was diagnosed with cerebral palsy. And he did a documentary showing the efforts that he and his family went through in ensuring that Samuel was included in the school setting. He followed his child's life. This documentary, I'm going to show you just a portion of it. It portrays his family hopes and struggles, as well as the experience of other families with disabilities and their students. The film has been screened at the universities, national conferences, public television stations, and independent theaters across the country. The title again is Including Samuel. Also has been featured on Good Morning America, as well as the Washington Post and the Boston Globe. The film won the Positive Images in Media Award for TASH, and TASH is an international group that's committed to full inclusion of people with disabilities. It was also screened at the Sprout Film Festival, at the Metropolitan Museum of Art, the Boston International Film Festival, the Fort Lauderdale International Film Festival, and the Moscow International Disability Film Festival. And then it received the Excellence Award from Superfest International Film Festival in Berkeley, California. Mercy Corporation, an international global agency, translated this documentary in Arabic, and it was screened throughout the country. It also has been translated in multiple languages. So I'm going to just give you just a snippet of it. Is it there? Wrong place? Okay.
At the table, two black-haired boys look at a book. A patterned brace wraps around the younger boy's chest. Next to him, the older boy sings. The younger boy talks to the camera. The older boy stands and bows to the camera.
My name is Dan Habib. My wife Betsy and I have two boys, Isaiah and Samuel. When I became a photojournalist 20 years ago, I did a story on one of the first elementary schools in New Hampshire to try inclusion, or mainstreaming as it was called at the time. At Beaver Meadow Elementary, kids with disabilities began to join the same classrooms as kids without disabilities. Now my son goes to Beaver Meadow. He has a disability, and I think about inclusion every day.
When Samuel was a baby and we first started realizing that he might have a disability, I remember being really afraid.
Words read Betsy McNamara, Samuel's mom.
All the things you imagine for your child were things I was afraid about. How could he run around on the playground, play kickball, when he could run? How could he yak on the phone with his teenage friends when he has trouble talking? How could he get a full education and go to college when he can't hold a pencil? I just couldn't imagine beyond that, and I was very afraid for him and for us.
Now a toddler, Samuel slowly rolls across the floor.
I am Isaiah, Samuel's brother. He was born when I was about 3 years old. We used to watch the Patriots games together.
Isaiah wraps his arms around Samuel's head and hugs him. Then he kisses him on the cheek.
You did that, did you? You didn't get that. We loved to play tackle.
No, actually, I got
There's sunlight streaming from a smile.
Interviews with kids.
Sammy likes spaceships. His favorite color is yellow. Does he like sunflowers? I like sunflowers.
Those are Samuel's classmates, his friends. He's going to grow up with these kids, and they'll know him as Samuel, not the kid in the wheelchair.
Barbara O'Brien, Samuel's teacher.
Inclusion is the best way for every child to learn, not just the child who comes in with a speech issue or the child who uses a wheelchair. It's every single child has a multiple way of learning, and we need to discover those ways.
In a group of his classmates, Samuel presses a button on his keyboard.
I made this film to honestly share our story as we try to figure out how to include Samuel in our school, our community, our family, in every aspect of our lives. But Samuel is young, and including him may become more and more challenging. So I also made this film to learn from the experiences of others, like Alana Malfi, Nathaniel Oriana, Emily Huff, and Keith Jones, who can look back on the choices they made and their parents made, and how that affected their lives.
Keith Jones, disability rights activist, hip-hop artist.
You cannot box people up in a room 20 by 20, 8 hours a day, and then ship them off into the world and expect them to have social interaction skills. It's not going to happen.
Keith uses his teeth in one arm to pull on a sweater.
Keith told me what it was like to grow up in the 1970s, when almost all kids with disabilities were completely segregated from the typical kids.
I asserted myself. I don't care about pace and politics on things. I want math. You know, can I get some math? Something. I was visiting in the fact that I had a family that knew what it was and how it was to be in education.
Keith turns on a stereo with his toes.
They knew what they wanted for their child. Because they also expected a lot of me. It's not all on the school. It's a two-sided equation.
Now Keith sits with two young men. He writes notes on a script with his toes.
Is inclusion easier for young kids like Samuel? What makes inclusion work well? And what makes it fail?
Words come into focus. Alana Malfi, now Alana, a young woman with glasses, sits outside.
I'm nice and funny. But people don't understand that, you know?
Carol Ward, teacher.
I feel that they thought that inclusion was a good idea, so yes, let's go do inclusion.
Alana with a teacher.
I did not have any formal or informal training
Subtitles. Why can't I go on the computer?
to have these students in my class.
Alana crosses her arms.
How am I going to reach the valedictorian and reach Alana at the same time? I don't know how to do that. I'm not even sure I reached the middle of the road this year. I have cried many times about it this year. I don't know what to do. I don't want another year like this year.
In a classroom, kids and a teacher hold hands in a circle.
Around the time Samuel started elementary school, I wondered, what does a school that is a model for inclusion look like? I met Marlene Oriana, a mother who was on the same search for her child.
In a classroom, a woman kneels by a painting easel with a boy. Words read, Nathaniel Oriana. Marlene Oriana, Nathaniel's mom.
He was withdrawn, very repetitive in all of his movements, very, very minimal speech. I didn't know anything about autism, and neither did my husband. I mean, it was like going on a roller coaster that never ended.
Nathaniel and his family visited the Haggerty School, a public elementary school in Cambridge, Massachusetts.
As soon as I walked in through the door with my husband, he said, "This is it. It feels like home."
Joe Petner, principal, Haggerty School.
We really accept people for who they are and what they are.
At the end of a row of chairs, a boy shuffles his feet and raises his arms like he's dancing. Principal Petner.
Whether it's one's racial background, racial or ethnic background, one's social economic background, one's family constellation, one's abilities. Seeing diversity in its fullest sense as an important quality.
In class, Nathaniel raises his hand to answer a question.
We're having some 2 more minutes left.
I can't limit him. I can't do that. Everybody else in life is going to limit him. I can't do it.
Now in class, a woman motions with her hands.
Can all children be included? Are there times when a separate school really is the best place for a student? I got to know Emily Huff as I looked for answers to those questions.
Now the woman paints at an easel. Emily Huff, mental health advocate.
I am in a doctor's office and they're talking like they know every single thing about schizophrenia that is to be known. They don't. I'm like, you don't understand anything. When you have 7 people living in your head, then we can talk.
A tattoo on her forearm shows symbols around a flame.
I had this internal world of fighting and friendship and all the excitement, all the things I didn't have in this world. And I continued to live in that world more and more and be in the real world with my family less and less.
In a photo, Emily wears a cape. Now Emily paints.
The more they picked on me, the more walls I put up, the more I alienated myself. The more I said to myself, I don't want to be part of their world. It was a lot of pain, a lot of crying, a lot of uncertainty about who I was.
Anne Huff, Emily's mom.
So it was very clear. A doctor had warned a year ago that placement in a public school was putting her at great risk.
I just want people to see the friendly, clever, smart, whatever I am person and not judge. People are different. Life isn't perfect. I just wish that one day I didn't have to hide who I am.
On a polished wood floor, Samuel slowly crawls forward on his belly to push a toy car. Betsy McNamara.
Now that I'm so close to a person with a disability, I can't believe that I was so blind to what people with disabilities in our community, in our country, in the world deal with every day. There was this huge civil rights issue, this huge amount of prejudice going on, and I never noticed it before.
Principal Petner.
I see the work of inclusion as probably the last frontier.
I'm going to stop it there. If you're interested in seeing the entire documentary, I have the video in my office. Others have asked for it to share with their student body as well as their staff. But it's pretty powerful through the eyes of a parent, through the eyes of a student, what it's like. And you heard the question, and you heard the statement by the teacher who said, this is really hard. When I have a student or students in my class that have various needs, how do I meet every child's need in an inclusive environment? Well, what I would say to that teacher, what I've said to my colleagues, and what we say as a district, is that it is not your responsibility alone. You have support. You have the district staff supporting you. You have your colleagues at your school working alongside you for the betterment of all kids on that campus. It's everyone's responsibility. And I think once our staff, our teachers more importantly, understand that they don't have to do this by themselves. They can reach out to my office, they can reach out to the district office, they can reach out to their colleague next door, that we do this together, we problem solve together. There is no magic wand. There is no magic wand, but it's the passion and love that we have for all students, and including students. And you also heard one of the spokespersons say, there may be times where a student is not appropriate for a student to be in an inclusive setting all the time. That's why we have less than 10% of our students who are in separate settings. Over 90% of our students in Levy County are in inclusive settings. Over 90% of our students in Levy County, our students with disabilities, are in inclusive settings. Whether it be full-time or partial, they are in inclusive settings as it is appropriate for that individual student. I will share with you that the state rate is about 75%. And we outshine all of our districts that are like size, that are small and rural districts, in terms of our students being included. So we do a really fine job in Levy County. Is it difficult? Yes, it's hard. Is it worth it? Absolutely. Moving forward, you know, in previous years, over time, I've had a student to speak from their lens. I've had support staff, parents, instructional staff come before us and share through their lens what it's like to be educated in Levy County over time. Well, tonight, I would like for one of our finest principals, I know they're all fine, every last one of them in our district. So Cheryl Beach is representing all the fine principals in our district. Cheryl needs no introduction. She's going to come and share briefly through the lens of a principal of a school who is very diverse. Ms. Beecher.
I don't need an introduction, is that good or bad?
That is good because we all know you and we love you. So you carry on.
Well, as I look around, I think I may be preaching to the choir as we first spoken.
You had heard sing.
Maybe not quite the choir. Well, I'll keep it brief, but good evening, and I'm Cheryl Beecham, as most of you know, and I am the principal at Bronson Elementary School here in Bronson. Dr. Hall has asked me to speak with you this evening since it is Disabilities Awareness Month, and because Bronson Elementary School has significant experience with working with students with disabilities. In the past, and probably most of you know this history, but I'll just do a quick rundown. In the past, Bronson Elementary School housed 3 self-contained ESE units that were only housed at Bronson Elementary. And today, though, we only have 2 self-contained ESE units, which are varying exceptionalities and an intellectually disabilities classroom for the medically fragile student in this district. These students in the intellectually disabled classroom are bused to Bronson Elementary from all over the district. These students have significant health problems which create or complicate their disability. So, at one time, I had an SED classroom, severely emotionally disturbed students, disabled students, and those classrooms were eventually moved back to their home communities. And I had a self-contained, varying exceptionalities classroom that it as well was bused to Bronson Elementary. So at this time, we only have 1 classroom, and I think most of you, when you come to visit, I have taken you on a little tour through that classroom. It's quite an eye-opening experience. Some of those students have a nurse at their side, so they are very medically fragile. But at Bronson Elementary, we use all service models to serve our students with disabilities. And this is because I don't believe that one model fits all students. We have the least restricted model to the most restricted model with everything in between in order to serve our students. We use consult, inclusion, resource rooms, and self-contained classrooms to serve those students with disabilities. I'm often asked why and how are we able to work so well with these students. My answer is this: it's a culture that has to be established at your school. We must think of these students as all of our students. not just the teacher whose classroom they're in. We must all be responsible for their success. At Bronson Elementary, we like to promote that these students, what these students can do, not just what they can't do. We try to include them in all activities at our school, from academic to extracurricular, from programs and clubs to kindergarten and 5th grade graduations. But most of all, we try to teach our regular ed students that we're all different, and that's okay. Some of us walk on 2 legs, and some of us sit in chairs with wheels to get around. Some of us have trouble in reading and some in math, but we all have strengths and weaknesses. Last but not least, I grew up with a brother that was physically handicapped. I was 12 years old when my brother was injured while working for the Levy County Sheriff's Office. Therefore, I have firsthand knowledge of what it's like to have to deal with adapting to the world around you and to overcome disability myths or misconceptions. My brother was paralyzed from the waist down and had to use a wheelchair to get around. He learned to drive a car, get up curbs, on sidewalks, in and out of buildings using a ramp, and even taught high school history for 5 years in this district at Bronson High School. He has learned something else, something that was very frustrating and offensive to him. People would make the assumption that because he was in a wheelchair that he was mentally disabled. They talked down to him like his brain was did not work instead of his legs. Of course, this was not true. He had never been able to teach school for 5 years if this had been the case. In fact, Milton was one of the smartest people I've ever known. So this life experience has given me unique insight into students with disabilities. You could say that the Lord was preparing me way back then for this job. I'd like to think that it's all about expectations and opportunities. The expectation that we at Bronson Elementary School will do everything in our power to develop the potential that each student has, whether that is great or small, and give them the opportunity to show us what they can do and not just what they can't do. Thank you.
I told Cheryl, I emailed her this morning, I said, I'm looking forward to seeing you. And I said, don't prepare anything, just come and speak from the heart. She's an example. She really exemplifies what we do here in Levy County in all of our schools. I get emotional and passionate about what I do. That's why I do it. I would do it for free if I didn't need the money, Mr. Hastings, to make my ends meet. You know, no, don't think about that. My point is that you know that you're in the right profession when you just do it because it's heavy on your heart and you do it no matter what. And it's about all kids, for all of us. And Cheryl, you did a beautiful job describing what you do at your school and taking even more deeper your personal experience. Thank you for that. And I have a little bag of some goodies for you. You all have some chocolates. You know you always get chocolates from me. So you have chocolates, you have a pad and all that stuff. It's something special for you. First, I'm going to share with you. Okay, last but not least is our proclamation. Let's make it official. Our resolution. Whereas October 1st to the 15th has been designated Disability History and Awareness Week by the Florida State Legislature. Whereas since 1975, students with disabilities have been educated in Levy County School, public school system with the passing of Public Law 94-142 by Congress. Whereas Levy County School Board has over 630 teachers, administrators, paraeducators, contracted staff, and support staff committed to providing quality educational services to students with disabilities. Whereas exceptional student education offers students with disabilities experiences and opportunities that will enable individuals to obtain post-secondary education, enter the workforce, and contribute to their communities. Whereas Levy County School Board has over 1,150 students identified with special needs to receive a quality, and I can't stress that enough. We truly provide top-notch services to our students per the individual needs students in the least restrictive environment. Shirley alluded to this. We have a continuum of services. The federal law says all districts will have a continuum of services from the most inclusive setting and sometimes to a separate setting because it's the appropriate setting for that individual student. Whereas Levy County School Board supports the goal of disability history and awareness education and will continue to facilitate supportive environments for all students, better treatment of individuals with disabilities, and increased attention to preventing the bullying and harassment of students with disabilities. Therefore, be it resolved that the Levy County School Board does hereby proclaim the weeks of October 1st through the 15th as Disability and Awareness Weeks. Be it further resolved that the Levy County School Board and the superintendent, our lovely Superintendent Robert Hastings of schools, reaffirms the local, I can change it, the local, state, and federal commitment to full inclusion and equal opportunity for all students with disabilities, passed and adopted this 7th day of October 2014. Robert Hastings, Superintendent, and our Chairman, Mr. Philip. Thank you very much.
Dr. Hall, I'd like to say thank you, especially for what you do for our children with disabilities and those without disabilities. And we're proud you're here in this community. Thank you for what you do. And Cheryl, I taught, I'm not sure if I taught or administrative whatever, but I worked with Milton at Bronson High School, and he was an asset in many ways to our kids and our school. And we did appreciate it very much.
Now, sure, I think I'm speaking for myself and both my colleagues, but we really appreciate having a tremendous amount of respect for what you do very for us. We thank you very much.
Dr. Hall, a question with IEPs and our students. If a student has an IEP, is the onus on the student, the parent, the teacher? Where is the onus to make sure that IEP is followed?
Is implemented?
Yes, ma'am.
The school. The LEA of the school, which starts with the principal and his or her support staff, which are the professionals, the teachers, we're obligated by law to implement the IEP as it stands. If there needs to be a revision, some changes, tweaking if you will, we reconvene, we have a conversation. But the team as a whole, which includes the parent, is a part of that conversation to make the final decision as it relates to supports and services for that child. But it's a collaborative effort.
I guess should the parent contact the principal or the teacher directly to make sure that the IEP is being followed, or?
I'm going to share from my world, and then our principal can share something differently if Ms. Beecham feels so. But I always encourage, when I receive a phone call from a parent, the first thing I ask the parent, have you talked to the teacher? Many times they have not. So I like to follow protocol and say, talk to the teacher first, and try to resolve it at that level. Then if they do not resolve it at that level, then speak with the administrator. It could be the assistant principal, the principal, because at that point, it can be resolved at school level. Sometimes parents will just call me because they have a concern or a question, and they have not addressed it at the school level. And I know our schools like to work with parents and work through their concerns. So that's our way of work in this district with that.
Thank you, Dr. Hall.
You're very welcome.
And I'm a product of Mr. Milton's history classes, so very thankful that I had him as a teacher.
Do we need a motion on this resolution?
No, it is just approved. I wouldn't think so.
No, sir, we do not.
It is not. It's just signed by the chair of the school board and by me, and it is that. Good deal.
Just a comment based on many years, we were a little bit back when, but as we board members receive these phone calls and all from these parents, as well as other parents, before we go to, making any recommendations, I feel, and I always did this as principal, is check with the school personnel, teacher, whomever, to check with the parents' involvement in these. As you're dealing with students with disabilities, if you got that parent out there that's doing nothing but calling you, complaining and griping, and then you call the school and find out, we never see or hear from this parent. As opposed to you get that phone call and you contact the school and you find out, oh yes, this person is very active in this child's life and education. It gives it a little bit different flavor than the one that just calls and complains. And that's true, we know with a lot of situations, but I think it's especially more true because it is so much more dependent, even from a liable standpoint, as school board, principal, school, superintendent, we're related to. So I would caution and urge you to, check into the situation as far as parental involvement to make sure you're dealing with the principal. It's really, with that parent that, really involved with their child and their education as opposed to this person who's just complaining and all they want is the school to do whatever.
I think that video point was made by the father that this, it takes everybody. It takes the parents, the teachers, the schools, everybody, even the child, certainly has a vital role in it. So if everybody works together, we can accomplish great things. If we're working against each other, it makes it far more difficult.
And I also feel with superintendent that, it's our role, the involvement with these phone calls, it becomes even more imperative that we have an actual real picture of this parent as well. Thank you, Mr. Superintendent. Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
That brings up one more, I appreciate that, Mr. Turner. So at the beginning of the school year, teachers assigned students in the class. Who meets to let them know that they have students in their class that have an IEP?
Our procedure is, the law requires at least one general education teacher to be at the IEP, but all teachers, and sometimes our parents will call and say, I want every teacher of my child at the IEP because I want to make sure they understand who my child is, what service and support they're going to need. But we're not required to have all staff members there, so when that does not occur, which is very seldom, we would have 6 or 7 teachers at an IEP. Doesn't mean that we haven't had it, but it's rare that we do. We'd have maybe 1 or 2 at the meeting. Then what we call the case manager, which is the ESE teacher at a given school, will share the outcome of that meeting, provide all teachers the accommodations, the supports and services. So there's some collaboration between even the teachers who are not present so that they are aware of who their students are. It should never be a secret, ever. You should know who your students are that have disabilities because they have services in place that you need to be aware of, and you're held accountable for implementing that IEP, whether you were at the meeting or not. And then along those same lines, we have students in classes that have a 504 plan, which is an accommodation plan. So it's critical that they are aware, and schools have a process in place to make sure that all that needs to know and aware of the children in their class.
Just one comment on that. They not only have to know who their kids are, they have very elaborate procedures on documenting the strategies they're using with those kids. So, they know because they have to document what they're doing with those kids.
Thank you very much.
Same with ESOL, by the way.
Thank you, Dr. Hall.
Thank you very much.
Okay, moving on, Ms. Donna.
Good evening, Mr. Superintendent, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. I appreciate your time tonight. What we are bringing you tonight is the balance of the recommendations of our benefit program. We have already presented part of it to you, and you approved the recommendations. The part that we are dealing with tonight is our health insurance, our life insurance, our disability insurance, and our hospital indemnity insurance. In the packet that we sent you, the first thing that I put on the discussion was about our online enrollment. And I mentioned this to you briefly during the last meeting, that we were trying to implement an online enrollment system. And I am very, very pleased to tell you that we are 99% sure that we are going to make that happen. Whether we're 100% sure will depend on some of the decisions that we make tonight. To make an online enrollment system work well for the first year, we had two goals. We had to make sure that we could offer an open enrollment for all of our employees for every benefit. And we had to make sure that our broker agents were willing to participate in the enrollment process. And our consultant, Don Crook, has been able to set up this enrollment, this online enrollment process through MGM Benefits. And all of our companies, again, depending on some of the decisions we make, have agreed that all of the commissions will run through MGM as the broker. And this is how we will be paying for our online enrollment system. So there will be nothing coming from the board. It will all be run through the insurance companies to the broker providing the online enrollment system. This online enrollment system will do two major things. Number one, it will be a great convenience to our employees. The first year is going to be a challenge because this is brand new. It's brand new to Kaylee, it's brand new to me, so we have to have some training. Don assures us that he's going to bring in enough people to train us and to take out to the enrollment to our employees so that we can get everybody on the system the right way. Moving forward, however, it will be possible for our employees in future years to do their own enrollment. If they're not making any changes in their insurance benefit packet, then they can go online and do the enrollment and not even have to come see us. We will continue to provide the annual support to all of our employees. We have some employees that are not savvy on the computer, and I'm one of those. And Kaylee's dreading this. She said, you be on the sales part, I'll be on the computer. And we're like, okay, good. But we do have some employees that do not have access to a computer. They may not be computer savvy, and we will be there to help those people through the enrollment process. The other part that is very important is that the online enrollment process will provide the data collection that we are going to need to satisfy the requirements of the Affordable Care Act. The Affordable Care Act is requiring a great deal of data, and this online enrollment system will prevent us from spending hours and hours and hours manually coming up with the data that's required. So this system is very important for not just our employees, but from an administrative standpoint. So if we could move forward, and Mr. Chairman, I believe that we can make a recommendation as the full package with maybe one motion. And after we go through the explanation process, I'll outline the final recommendation, and you can act upon that if that meets with your approval.
Thank you.
Okay, let's move forward with the health insurance. In the original package that I sent you, that came with your board packet, there was a pink piece of paper that outlined for you rates for an 11% increase, a 13% increase. And the first thing I want you to do with that pink piece of paper, which is the letter size piece, not the legal, is cross through it. That one's no good. with Brian Brown. And if you can't find it, don't worry about it. We're going to move on to the legal side piece anyway. But we met with Brian Branham, Audrey Haynes, for almost 2 hours on September the 30th, reviewing the renewal data. Our insurance committee is made up of 3 administrative personnel and 3 representatives recommended by the union. After that 2.5-hour session, we still requested more information from them. They provided us that information, and I requested the members of the committee to give me their recommendation to present to you, with instructions that I was going to present to the board all of the recommendations because you have to make a final decision. I did hear back from Carmen Ward, who is recommending a 6% increase. And the 3 administration personnel is recommending a 10% increase. And if I can refer you now to the legal pink piece of paper, I will show you where those numbers come from and why we're making the recommendation that we're making. There are 3 funding factors that we have looked at for 2015. We are anticipating claims to come in at $3,788,063. In addition to the claims expense, you'll see where it says reinsurance, and that's the insurance that's in place to make sure that if aggregately we run over a certain level of claims, this insurance kicks in. It also is the insurance that will cover a claim that is in excess of $150,000. So if we have a high-cost claim that comes in at $500,000, then the Levy County School Board's self-insured fund is going to be responsible for $150,000. They will deliver a check to us for the difference in the $500,000 and the $150,000. And that's how that excess claim will be paid. There's also a line item here for the health center at $660,000. So the total funding on this first option is $5,373,161. We have further showed you how we get the funds that go into our self-insured fund. And please remember that any negotiation on this fund is negotiating with ourselves. This money no longer goes to Florida Blue. This money stays in our district. It goes into our self-insured reserve fund. So whether we do 13%, 6%, or 10%, that money is our money, and we're just negotiating with ourselves. This first option is an increase of 13%. And this would give us 9-month funding for premiums of $5,064,940. In addition to that income, we are anticipating a roll forward from 2014, which is money we're collecting in 2014 that we are not using, and will fund that reserve account of approximately $222,000. We think that that number is conservative. But remember also that we are in the first year of our self-insured plan, and we have to be conservative. We have to make sure that the funding in the self-insured plan is what we need to pay the expenses. So while we think that number will come in higher, we want to use the conservative number of 222,000. In addition to that, Florida Blue is giving us $25,000 in wellness money. And this was actually negotiated last year when we signed the administrative services contract. We're also expecting approximately $25,000 from Blue Cross Blue Shield as a rebate on name brand prescription drugs. And this is part of the ACA. So you see our total funding for this is $5,337,000, which leaves an additional liability outstanding of $35,927. So we can consider our self-insured fund 100% funded with a 13% increase, leaving $35,927. Now, where that additional liability outstanding comes from is just the difference in the income and the expenses, and we're not truly concerned about the $35,000. This would have to be paid if we had a catastrophic claims year. If we just blew through all the reserves, then the board would still be on the hook for about $36,000. Any questions on this? All right, let's move forward to the next page. Under option number 2, under this option, this is a renewal funding the reserve account at 95%. And we can fund that at 95% with a 10% increase. And the expenses for the reinsurance, the ASO, which is the Administrative Services Only contract with Florida Blue, and the health center remains the same through all of these options. The only thing that changes is the expected claims. And we, again, can fund 95% at the 10%, which leaves us the additional liability of $170,000. So if we have a catastrophic claims year, then the board could still be on the hook for $170,000. And if you move to option number 3, this is 90% funding of the reserve at 6%. And this is the recommendation that was made by Ms. Ward. And you'll see that the additional liability on this one is almost $350,000 if we have a catastrophic claims year. Administration thinks that is way out of reach and do not recommend that we sit with an additional liability of $350,000.
How often have we had those claims that's gone over like that?
Well, it's going to be hard to judge. Now, we have had high-cost claims. High-cost claims is not really our problem because we're capped at 150. What will really cause us a problem is if we have several claims running between $75,000 and $100,000. Because if we have 6 claims at $100,000, then we're talking $600,000.
But how often does that happen?
Well, I can't tell you that because we've always been fully insured.
So we've never gotten to this, to have this happen?
We've never been here before.
We've never funded it at 95, 90%. We've always been fully insured at 100%.
We were fully insured with Florida Blue, which means that we took all of our premium dollars, we gave them to Florida Blue, and they paid the claims. Then at the end of the year, we would be running a 87% claims to premium ratio, an 85, a 91, and then that's how they would generate the increases that we saw every year. So I can't tell you because we have no history.
Do they give you an idea about, you people crunch these numbers, about the odds of some of these things happening?
It's not high. It is not high, but do we want to put ourselves out there for $350,000 in the event that it does happen? Now, let's move, I have one more proposal for you. Let's move to the orange piece. Because we have a way to help with this. The option 1, option 2, option 3 on the orange piece is the same 13%, 10%, and 6%. But if you'll look down in the funding area, and I've highlighted it for you, it says HRA funding, $125,000. I went to the superintendent and asked him for permission to recommend to you that, if you remember, several years ago, we put in the HRA money. We got $225,000 from Blue Cross Blue Shield in wellness money. And we decided to give that to our employees for them to spend, and it came to $255 for 843 employees. We also came back to you in August the 20th of 2013 and asked that we amend that plan to end it on 6/30 of 2014. So that plan is done. And we have $125,000 left in HRA money. We want to retain that $125,000 and use it for medical because that was the original intent of the money. So by taking that $125,000, what we can do is reduce that additional liability outstanding on each of the option 1, 2, and 3. And if you'll look at option 2 on the orange page at the 10%, you'll see that the additional liability is $45,000. And then if you'll look at the pink sheet, option 1 at 13%, you'll see that the additional liability is $36,000. So by using that $125,000 as additional funding, we can end up at 10% increase at the same place we were going to do 13% increase within $10,000. Option number 2, using the $125,000 HRA money, is the recommendation that administration is making to you.
Bonnie, you might also remind me what the increase was last year.
The increase last year was 18.3%. And historically, and Care Here keeps telling me this, Don Crook keeps telling me this, Audrey Haynes, who has been in Citrus County for years, and Citrus County has been self-insured for 5 years. And we are trending very, very, very well. Everybody is excited about where we are in our first year. And we actually haven't even finished our first year. But we are trending so well that they are anticipating, and this is not for sure, but they are anticipating next year we could be looking at 5%. The first 2 years of the self-insured plan is the most critical because we have roll forward claims, but after the second year, it will start leveling out. We will build up those reserves, and you'll start looking at increases in the 5% range, the 3% range. Citrus County just renewed, the consultant wanted 3%. The board wanted 1%, and they ended up at 2%. So that's the kind of increases we could be looking at when we hit year 3, 4, 5 moving forward.
Mr. Turner, we've discussed this and talked about this in our office, and this is just a comment. Like Mr. Turner talked about, this is the same revenue that we're negotiating with ourselves. It just, out of our office, this is a recommendation that whatever plan that you make, like whether it's $45,000 or $224,000, that additional outstanding liability, take that amount and put it in escrow, so to speak. because that is dollars that may very well may be spent. And it's certainly not something you want to budget for something else. So in other words, budget this money, put it into an account, so to speak, that's my layman's terms of budgeting, so that it can be used but for this purpose. And then next year, if it's not used, or whatever excess is not used, we can roll it back into the plan, just like the $125,000.
This is the last go-around on the, if we use it, $125,000.
That's it.
That's not recurring revenue.
It's a one-time deal. And if you're looking at the purple sheet, this gives you the 2015 proposed rates based on the 13%, the 10%, and the 6% increase. And you'll see on the right-hand side, should the board pay 100% of employee health insurance, then it would cost the board for 10% an additional $361,303. The other part of the recommendation for the health insurance is that we would be renewing the health insurance policy with Florida Blue with no change in benefits. We have called up on all the ACA changes that were mandated through the Affordable Care Act. So we are recommending a renewal for 2015 with no changes. We're also recommending that we renew the self-insured Florida Blue Administrative Services, which is called the ASO contract. And that's the $54.10 per employee per month that Florida Blue charges to process our claims and pay our claims. And this actually is a renewable contract through 2016 at the same rate. We are recommending that we offer open enrollment for 2015, which will slide into the need of online enrollment. This is the information. The other piece that I gave you in the white sheet, this is a summary of what's going on with the care center. And our care center is working extremely well. And we credit what's going on with the care center in controlling some of our claims costs. And I'll let you peruse this yourself. Apparently,
has the administration done any closer looking? I know we had mentioned this earlier on the number of no-shows.
We have been working on that. I got a weekly report. You can see that our no-shows have been significant, but we are continuing to work on that. The next step is to identify those persons individually, and we will correspond with those persons and let them know that unless they start showing up for their appointments, they will no longer be welcome at the care center. Otherwise, we will be coming back to the board and requesting that we start charging for no-shows. We do realize that we still have some work to do. During our insurance committee meeting, some of the union representatives indicated that one of the reasons that people don't go to the care center is because it doesn't go toward their deductible. Now, I'm still trying to wrap my head around that comment because my goal is never to pay any of my deductible. And if I can go to the care center and get absolutely free health care and prescription care, then that's what I'm going to do. Now, if I have an unfortunate year and I have to go in the hospital, then yes, I'm going to pay my $1,500 deductible. But a few visits to the doctor, number one, is not going to make that much difference. And there are solutions that employees can put in place to help them pay that. But we are going to work on that and see if we can change that focus. I would like to to move now to the life insurance renewal.
I just have one question, I don't even know how to say this, but the thing is, I mean, I know this $125,000 is kind of like a godsend almost to me again. But what happens next year? We don't have it, I mean,
Well, we're going to have to go through the same process, see where we are, but with what the reinsurance, Symetra, is trending, what Care Here is trending, and what our consultant is trending, is they're telling us that with a 10% increase and using this $125,000 as additional funding, that our reserve account should be in good shape.
My question is kind of long, but it's kind of directed at Mr. Rob. I'm looking at our budget here and our number 23 where it says group insurance. And we budgeted $2,641,856.
What page?
It says page 2, but page 2 is.
You're talking about the budget that was adopted by the board.
Yes, sir. So I guess it's our 4th page in.
The budget that was adopted by the board doesn't correspond with the numbers that Care Here has proposed here.
Right.
Their numbers are much more conservative, which is good. Mine was more optimistic, but I only had 6 months of history, January to June, is what I based my numbers on. What they based their numbers on is more conservative. So to answer Mr. Philpott's question, I think our reserves will actually be greater than what they're reflected here, just based on the first 6 months of the year. 6 months isn't very much history to go with.
That is true.
So I put the budget together based on what we had done for the first 6 months, basically doubled it, cast it forward for the next 12 months. But this is on a calendar year basis, so the increase that you see of $361,000, only half of that will be impacted in this year's budget.
Okay.
All what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But what I'm looking here is, we budgeted $2.6 million. And now we're talking about $5 million, and I realize where we get the reinsurance in that, so where's the difference in those numbers?
Okay, I don't see the 2.6 that you're speaking of.
Okay, on the 4th page of the budget.
Okay, first of all, that is general fund.
Okay.
We're talking about the internal service fund.
Okay.
Okay. So, step back and look at this. 'Cause this is internal service fund.
Okay.
Okay. What this is a recap of the general fund as of September
Okay.
compared to last year.
So this is what we spent out, what we got.
That has nothing to do with what Ms. Donald presented. This is general fund. What she's presenting is internal service fund, which is where the benefits are, which is this column here.
that $5 million is enough a year to do that.
Yes.
So we actually don't pay that half.
So this is anticipated, this is fund balance. And then this is anticipated next year. Based on the budget.
Give or take. All right, that's half.
And their numbers are much more conservative. So I think it's a good proposal. We need an increase, in my opinion, we need an increase just to make sure that the fund is solvent. We don't have enough history not to do it. If we had more history, we could say, okay, we could just take a pass and not have any increase. But with 6 months of history, I'm nervous about that. I think the right thing to do is to have some increase, whether it's 10, whether it's 13, whether it's 6. That's a matter of question, but we certainly need to fund an increase in anticipation of need.
We also need to remember too that in this calculation, they have used a 9% what they call trend. And trend is what they anticipate medical costs to go up. So there's all kinds of considerations, and that certainly has to be one of them. But we we think, based on these numbers, that a 10% increase, which would fund it at 95%, using $125,000 as additional funding, will cover what we need to cover. And our folks did not even hesitate that that would not be sufficient. And I'm not suggesting that $361,000 is insignificant, but we have been here and worse before during our fully insured conversations. So again, this money is not leaving the Levy County School Board. This money is staying in our reserve account, but this is where we think we need to be to properly fund the self-insured account.
I would like to maybe add my little bit in there, that we're talking about 13% being a high number of the ones that are being presented. 10%, 6%. And it's kind of going backwards to one degree, but, you know, I remember us talking about 13% increase on being fully insured somewhere else as being the lowest and the greatest thing that we can do. And we're here, as I see it, talking about that being the highest that we were looking at. And understanding, yes, that all of the numbers are not in, and these are projections, but I remember us also having discussions in the past that those were projected numbers. Those were not solid numbers. That was if we can get a increase at this level.
Well, when they were talking about the increases for a fully insured plan, they knew what our claims had been, but we never knew what their administrative fees costs were. And that was proprietary, and we were never to know. So again, this is our money for the use of our employees, and we know what we're getting, we know where we're spending it.
Mr. Turner, if I can refresh our memories, just last year, Blue Cross Blue Shield offered us a 28% increase, and they offered the Sheriff's Department a 32 or 33% increase, somewhere in there. When they realized that we were going to go a different route, it came down to 22%, and that was their final and best offer at 22% increase last year. We felt like the only way that we could control the increases was by going to the self-insured model. And we realized that we were stepping out on a limb, that we were plowing new territory. It's something that I had looked at but wasn't sure that we could make it work. And, you know, but it is working, and it's working well. And so this year, last year we did have 18%, but that's still 4% below our best offer from fully insured. And then if we go, whatever you go with this year, 6, 10, 13, but, and in the future. I think we got a good start on being able to control what's happening with insurance and increases. But anyway, I just want to refresh your memory on the 28%, 22%, and what we ended up with 18% last year.
I just knew they were high.
Yes.
Don, didn't you mention that another local county decided to go a different route and not with Blue Cross, and how that's impacting them?
Yes, it is. Yes, and actually, this district went from Florida Blue to United Healthcare, and they signed, and they were so proud they signed a 3-year contract. But the 3-year contract stipulates that United cannot have or impose more than a 10% increase on them. So we still have more control as a self-insured plan on how we move forward. And if we continue trending the way we are, then I feel sure that we're going to be looking at lower than 10% moving forward. Any more questions on the health insurance? Okay, if we can move forward to the life insurance renewal. Currently, we are with ING Life Insurance and have been with ING Life Insurance for several years, many years actually. Again, one of the things that we needed was an open enrollment. And and they refused to allow us an open enrollment in 2015. Actually, they had given us an open enrollment in 2014, so they wouldn't do it for us again. We have a proposal in front of us moving our life insurance from ING to Assurant Employee Benefits. It is an A-rated company, and I've outlined for you the benefits, and I've compared the Assurant benefits with the ING benefits.
Is that in our pack? Where is that? I don't
Together.
know. It was in that very page, because
Yeah, and this one. No,
okay, this, and this.
yeah. And if I can just run down this list of benefits real quickly. Assurant is offering the $10,000 board-paid life insurance, just as we have it now at the same rate. The policy with reduction in face value and premium at age 65, 70, and 75, and that's the same as we currently have with ING. They have offered a full open enrollment with a $180,000 guarantee issue. So an employee can come in that has never had supplemental life insurance ever and can come in and get a $180,000 policy with no medical statements. They can get $50,000 guarantee issue for their spouses and $10,000 on their children. And forever, we have had a policy for children that was for $2,000. So we're moving that up from 2 to 10. We are doing a full grandfathering for current levels of coverage. So if our folks already have the supplemental coverage at whatever level they have, they will continue to have that coverage at the same rate. The maximum voluntary benefit for employees under Assurant will go to $500,000. ING is $300,000. For spouses, it will go to $250,000. Currently, it's $150,000. And the max benefit for children, as we said, is $10,000. They've also agreed to do an annual modified open enrollment where employees can increase coverage by $10,000 up to the guarantee issue amount, which we will negotiate with them each year. The age reduction for active employees' voluntary coverage will start at age 70. With ING, it starts at 65. So if we have employees that are actively working, right now, when they hit 65, we reduce their benefit by 60, or to 65%. And then it reduces again in 70 and 75.
But Assurant doesn't start doing that until age 70.
For active employees. It also includes a 3-year portability option at the current rate, which we don't currently have with ING. We do have a conversion provision, which means that if somebody leaves our employment, they want to take their life insurance with them, they can contact the company and convert their policy to a full life insurance policy, which no one has ever done because it's too expensive. They do it based on your age. They convert it from a term life to a full life, and nobody can afford it. What Assurant will do is do a 3-year portability, and that means they can hold that policy for 3 additional years after they terminate employment. And then at that point, they can either convert it or not. And we do not have to administer that. Assurant will administer that once that employee leaves our employment. It also includes free will preparation. I'm sure that's an online service. The one change with Assurant is the cost of retiree insurance. And there's no statutory requirement that the board allow retirees to retain their life insurance. There is a statutory requirement that we offer retirees health insurance. But for the life insurance, there is none. And we have had a sweetheart deal with ING for years for retirees, because our retirees, and Kaylee and I ran reports this afternoon, and we have a lot of retirees in their 80s, a lot of retirees in their 70s that are paying the same premium that our current employees in their 20s, 30s, 40s, and 50s. So Assurant would not give us that sweetheart deal. Instead, they have offered, and you can see the values as it decreases. The $10,000 life policy would cost $150 a year, which comes to $12.50 a month. It's still a good deal. $65,000 would cost $97.44, $5,000 would cost $75, and $3,000 would cost $45. That is the only change, the only downside, and I don't see it as a downside. As a matter of fact, I am going to be a branded retiree January 1st, and I have already given Kaylee my check for $150 because it's still a good deal. Any questions on the life insurance? And yes, my husband is beneficiary on the policy. Okay, if we could move to the hospital indemnity plan. We currently have the hospital indemnity plan through American Public Life Insurance Company, and we are recommending we renew the same policy at the same rates for 2015.
Exactly what does that mean? What's an indemnity claim?
What that does is if one of our employees has to go in the hospital and they have the hospital indemnity plan, then American Public Life will write them a check for $1,500. If they go through the emergency room, they have to be inpatient, which means they have to be 18 hours in the hospital. If they're there more than 18 hours, this plan will pay their deductible. We'll send them a check for $1,500. It will also pay them a per diem, so they'll get 30, I think it's either $30 or $35 daily for every day they're in the hospital. So this is one way that Ms. Ward could explain that our $1,500 deductible would be in. Any questions on the indemnity? The next thing we would like to recommend is that in 2014, we recommended to you that we offer a long-term disability policy, and it was through Aetna. It required a 20% enrollment, which we did not get. And we feel like maybe we didn't get the 20% enrollment because there was so much going on. Going from a fully insured plan to a self-insured plan with a rate increase, and at the time we were doing enrollments, we had not satisfied what part the board was going to pay, what part employee had to pay. So there was just so much going on, and we feel like maybe we can market it better for 2015. And so therefore, we want to try again. And we still have the 20% requirement for enrollment, and should we not meet that, then we would notify those employees that we did not put the policy in place.
That's 20% those that have health.
Yeah, so that's 20% of total, because you don't have to have health insurance to get that coverage. And our consultant, Mr. Krug, he is a strong advocate of disability plans because it replaces income. And there are a lot of options for our employees to choose from, which will make the difference in what they pay in premium. And so we would like to give them an opportunity again to pick up that policy. And the one big piece about this is that it does cover pregnancy, covers maternity. So if some of our younger people are out having babies, they can pick up this policy and cover them while they're out having babies. And that's where most of our interest came from last year, as a matter of fact.
I think that's the one that
Chairman, that completes the information. And if I may, I would like to recap the final recommendation. And for the health insurance, renew the current Florida Blue coverage with no change in benefits at a 10% rate increase to fund at 95%, using the $125,000 return of HRA funds to reduce the additional liability from $170,000 to $45,000, and offer an open enrollment. Under the life insurance, recommend the new policy underwritten by Assurant Employee Benefits with an increased benefit option at the same rate for active employees as our current provider, with an increase in rates for retiree coverage. For the hospital indemnity, we recommend renewal of our current plan with no change in benefits or rates. And for the long-term disability, we recommend a policy underwritten by Aetna with benefits outlined in the attached summary of benefits with a required 20% enrollment to activate.
Ms. Donna, this is life insurance, I've never heard of this life insurance company. You say they're A, is that the high rating A?
Well, I mean, there are higher, there's A+ and A++, but they are an A-rated company.
And what was ING?
ING is an A-rated company. This, we're not increasing benefits with a subpar insurance company to get to where we need to be. Assurant is a viable insurance company, and Don has done business with Assurant, and we have no problem with the recommendation.
Thank you, ma'am. Are there any other questions?
Maybe we accept the recommendation.
Is there a second? Second. Is there any discussion? Yes, Mr. Turner.
Just clarification, under the, we're going to be doing online enrollment.
Yes, sir.
All right, and under this life insurance renewal, it says annual modified open enrollment.
Yes, sir.
Are the other open enrollments, this will be online? Will that create any problem that they'll be modified?
It is, I understand it's nothing that this enrollment system can't handle. Citrus County has been with this enrollment system for 5 years, and she told me the other day that there were bugs when they first went into it, but they have worked out all the bugs, and they are more than pleased with the online enrollment system.
Well, what does that, what modified, what does that mean?
It just means that they're not going to offer the same benefits that they are as a full open enrollment.
Okay.
They're going to allow us to increase some, but it's not going to be at the level that we are in full open enrollment.
Any other questions? All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. Motion passes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If I may, I have one more request I would like to speak to the board about. The superintendent and I met, and he and I have put our name to a reference letter for Mr. Brooke. And I would like to outline for you some of the things that we have done in the short 18 months that we have been with Don Brooke and his company. And during that 2 years, number one, Don pushed us into a self-insured plan. He saw our fully insured plan was in jeopardy. Our rates were going up every year. And even though he knew that we were a small district, he knew that he could put this plan in place and it would be a viable option for us. He also knew that to make the self-insured plan work, we needed that care center so that we could offer our employees not just health insurance, but first dollar health care. So now our employees can go to this care center, have free physician care, prescription care, And he did that by introducing us to Care Here. And Mr. Hastings' experience with Care Here, and I think the rest of the administration and my experience with Care Here is they are outstanding. They have been more than, they have eased my mind a lot. I have a problem at the care center. I call them, I'm excited, I talk to them, and in a very calm voice, it's, we'll take care of it. And they have never failed us. So Don has put that partnership in front of us. And in 1 year, besides a viable health plan and a successful employee health and wellness center, we are providing bus driver physicals through the care center now at a cheaper rate than we were getting them outside the care center, and they're more extensive. They're better physicals. We are providing drug testing now through our care center at a cheaper rate than we are paying our current vendor. We are also moving our workers' compensation into the care center so that they will be our first responder office. All of this has happened in 1 year. And we have, and Mr. Crook has, the only thing he's asked of us, and we certainly paid him a fee, but the thing that he wanted most from us is to build his business in the state of Florida, because he is in Texas and he has a good business in Texas, but he wants to build his business in Florida. And the only thing he has asked of us is to make a recommendation if we feel it appropriate. And Mr. Hastings and I feel that it's appropriate, and we would like to ask the board if they would participate and sign the letter going to Mr. Crook. And if I could take just a minute and read the letter to you. We have completed our benefit renewal process for 2015, which is the second annual renewal under your guidance. After a few short months in our district, you recognized our fully insured group health plan was in jeopardy and helped us move into a self-insured program. We were reluctant, but you were sure, even though our district is small, that we could make it work. Now, nearing the end of our first year in a self-insured program, we have a viable health plan trending in the right direction, and we're looking forward to continued success in moving into 2015. You also convinced us that the best way for our self-insured program to work was to provide our employees with first dollar health care and not just health insurance. You established our partnership with Crown Inc. Care Here, and in February of 2014, we opened our Employee and Wellness Center under their direction. Care Here provides outstanding administration of our center with an excellent professional medical staff, providing free medical, prescription, and wellness care to our employees. Our employees love the care they receive, the time available with the physicians, and the convenience of the center. In less than a year, our care center services have expanded beyond employee medical care to include CDL licensed driver physicals, a flu shot program at our employee work locations, 10-panel drug screenings for new employees at a lower cost than a 5-panel screening through our contracted services, and using the center as our first responder office for workers' compensation. We also recognize that you have worked tirelessly to bring us into the 21st century with an online enrollment system that you had to think outside the financing box to provide us with the service. We are excited about the convenience to our employees and the assistance to the district in the massive data collection and reporting required under the Affordable Care Act. We appreciate the work you and your staff do on our behalf, and we look forward to a continued partnership with your company. And Mr. Philpott, if you and the board would agree, we would be proud to have you sign with us.
I don't have a problem with it.
I might add that when we were interviewing 2 years ago for a consultant, we interviewed 3 people. The other 2 proposals came in around $50,000 for a consultant fee per year. and Don Crook came in at 12,000. And being based in Texas, I question whether he could do us justice. How would he fly back and forth from Texas and do us? But he said this is what he wanted. He wants to build his reputation and his holdings here in Florida, and if we're happy with him to, say we're happy and tell other people we're happy if they ask us. And so that's one of the reasons for the letters that we feel like it's part of our obligations to fulfill that 12,000 versus 50,000 that would have cost us. Pretty cheap, but.
Thank you, Ms. Donna.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you very
Chairman.
much. At this time, the chair will entertain a motion to take a 5-minute recess.
So moved, my brother.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. We're in a 5-minute recess.
Look sort of see. It's not out here, so you know. All right, Ms. Beach,
Expect it to perform like why didn't you read Great job. No, I'm not gonna tell them. What was your husband yesterday? 95%.
Busy. They'll store something. You got to go all the way with it.
Well, I was just wanting to ask,
I've been at Williston.
No, I saw him at the, diner.
I saw that one.
Like, what we figured that out.
We have Audrey. She said it's not really, you can't ever get a break.
You want a breakfast with Twitter? Okay, it's a mistake. That's what it's like. Well, that'll work. Oh, real carpenter like that. I like that, right?
Good presentation.
About 8:30, 9
I don't want it at 6. He left on his
I won't right now. You got a bad eye. You didn't see it? Good, that was right. There's enough to have a shot for sure. Let's get a little bit of question. Hello, Mike, how are you this evening, sir?
Good, sir, how are you doing?
Doing very well, thank you. Good to see you. Coming over, watching over, on that page out there. If you wait around, you can take me to get something to eat.
You got executive session.
Me too, I You probably got some work you need to do out there.
She might need a break. I know.
Being around me, that's considered a break.
I'm not in charge of that. You would be in charge of letting us know how long that executive session is. Right now, it's just consent
Dr.
agenda.
Okay, I'll wait.
If you lost in that, I'll excuse myself.
You guys had
Well, obviously, calls you sir.
You're done?
Read all the, color.
Yeah, that's the one I like.
I
No, I never, Daryl never come today.
I promise you, only in this room.
Cameron, how do you know what color jelly beans you like best?
That's what I thought. I fully expect that to roll out any time. I hope y'all get in the car. Tastes like this. No, I got to slip them jelly beans, you know what kind of meat. I never have gold in this, but when she was there, look at the purple pepper. I looked down, I look everywhere, there's a tree, I go. Oh, that's good. Look at your yellow paper. He's got to be this far. Hang on. He's making floating. Well, but the slight disability.
I've been thinking about it pretty strong.
Different color to it. Oh my gosh. I almost broke my own rule.
Oh, I knew.
I thought about getting it. How's that? Nah, just ain't going out. David had it melted my heart. That's why I don't. We don't eat that. Don't act like one.
Give one.
I think it's not fair about that, see, when they go on cousin, just.
Oh, it's very enticing. No, I was.
Hey, Mr. Cook, you don't think you work on any of the work?
You want me to use that?
You can walk everybody.
He's supposed to keep your eye, we'll see Chip, he's supposed to. You got a separate land use agreement that she sent you.
Yeah, that's great. She was good. You got that verified?
Oh, I'm confused.
There are two. Now, I sent it to David, I don't know if you.
I got it.
You did?
I got it. I'm sorry, I thought that was, I didn't know what Jake used for that.
No, it's two separate deals.
Okay. Sorry.
Call the meeting back in order. Next item is approval of the minutes. Mr. Pam, is any additions, corrections to the minutes?
We approve minutes?
Second.
Is there any discussion? All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. Minutes are approved. Consent agenda. Ms. Pam. Any additions?
Yes, so there are some
Okay.
corrections. We'll look on page 2 of the consent agenda. And this deals with the outfield areas. From Chiplin Elementary, Clay Allen, we're taking him off. He'll be marked off, and also Charlicia Langford and Lori Thomas from Chiplin Elementary.
Does that mean they're good to go?
Yes, sir. Good to go. We're down to LLA, our Libby Learning Academy for Gary Harris, he's coming off. And then on Jan O'Neill, mark through Algebra 1A, Algebra 1B, Intensive Math, Library Arts, no, Liberal Arts, I'm sorry, Liberal Arts Math 1, Individual Dual, I don't know what that is. Sports 1 and 2, mark that through, and add PE and home. So all that she's out of field in would be middle junior math, and take the 1 out, middle junior math, PE, and home. And I have these, you can review all this online, once we get it approved. Also, Wilson Middle, Rebecca Colosi is coming off. On the back page, we're going to add district, and it would be Susan Pasty from our district DSE teacher. Her out of field areas would be middle junior English, middle junior social science. And there's one more on the very back page, number 6. On professional leave, the CTE curriculum training, we're adding David Tomlin from Cedar Key. He's going also. Number 6.
dropping down to number 2 on the student trip request. I had put down that Bronson Middle High for the national convention was taking commercial carrier rental van, they're actually taking a county van. So that's a change there, and that's all the corrections.
Say Bronson Middle High?
Yes, sir, Jennifer Bray
Okay.
for the national FFA convention,
Yes, sir.
she's taking a county van, not with your own railway. Okay, that was it.
Thank you, ma'am.
You're welcome.
Mr. Purdy, have any questions?
I did, but I had them answered. Thank you very much.
Ms. Brooks? Mr. Calvin?
No, sir, I'm good tonight.
Mr. Evans?
Pat, now.
I have no need, I hear a motion.
So moved.
Yes, sir.
What was Doug Brooks doing in Sioux Chief?
He was a janitor.
He was the custodian. Okay. We should have had that on there.
I already had that answered.
And I meant to, I just got it. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. I hear a motion.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. The consent agenda has been approved. Mr. Superintendent, you have comments?
I do. First of all, I'd like to make mention of our food service program. You know, we were in dire straits with the amount of money that we lost this last year in food service. And one thing that had to happen was we had to get our participation rates up. So we bought these food carts primarily for the breakfast program and trying to get to the kids where it would increase. And so far, it has worked extremely well. From going just from August to September, we went from breakfast program completing 39.32 to say 40% to 50.5%. So we went up about 11% in the breakfast program just from August to September. Our goal is to reach 50%. Now, I have a little concern that with the wintertime coming on, being dark so early in the morning and coolness and all, our participation rate may drop, but we're working diligently with the principals and the cafeterias to try to keep our participation rates up. Our lunch program is doing well from 69% in August to 74% in September. And so we're where we want to be. We have a couple of schools that are at a disadvantage, particularly for the breakfast, and that's Wilson High School, Wilson Middle School. When you don't start until 9 o'clock, those kids have either eaten breakfast or eaten whatever they're going to eat at the Jiffy store or whatever. So a good goal for them would be 30% for breakfast. If we can get them to 30%, we will certainly be happy with that. They did have an increase from August to September, so they're working at it, but it's a struggle for them just because of the time that school takes in. Do y'all have a schedule of school visits? You should have that in your packet. In order to get everybody in, to try to get everybody in, and we look at a multitude of things such as, the holidays and spring break and so forth, and trying to avoid those. But we will basically be at Bronson Middle High School on October 21st, our next board meeting for its PD Day. And so we'll count that, even though the classes won't be in session that day. You certainly will get a lay of the land, and perhaps we can visit some other time, I don't know. But the others, I think, are very doable, and we'll certainly make every effort to make sure that we're doing those. held out, last week before last now, I guess, the advance meeting, and we spent a considerable amount of time talking about all of the requirements of the legislation and DOE and other things that we have to have in place, and our concerns for moving so rapidly with so many changes. And then we put that down, composite down into a workable document, and we presented that to Pam Stewart, the commissioner, on Friday, and had a very good discussion. Of course, she's heard all this stuff time and time again from us, so it wasn't any new ground, but it certainly, we can't back off and quit. We have to keep expressing our concerns about the things that we have to have in place for this year. And I won't go over it, but just the conclusion and recommendation, I want it on record of how the superintendents in the state of Florida feel, and what our great concerns are about. And the conclusion is that we're concerned about all the new assessments, and that we have to create that our teachers have to have in place, or however we're going to get all the EOCs done. And meeting the technology requirements for administering the new assessment. Again, and we had Charlie Stone and Julia here today, and spent about 2 hours with them, and to express our concerns about the requirements for technology and testing everybody on computers for EOCs and the air tests and so forth. It's going to be a nightmare, and I don't know how we're going to do it, to be honest with you, but we certainly will not quit trying to get there. And tying all that to local assessments, and you know, you may have local assessments here, air tests here, combinations here, and to try to be fair to teachers, it's going to be very difficult. And we've just got a real concern about that. Nobody has any confidence or faith in the BAM scores. I don't know of a teacher that does. I'm not sure there's any administrators that have any confidence in it. But, you know, that's where we're at. The recommendations are for the first year of administering the assessment, that this year must be a true baseline year. And that means holding the students harmless from adverse consequences of the test performance and allowing the students' results to be used to field test the system and to improve the assessments for this year. The state has come out and said they're going to hold districts and schools harmless. But that didn't give any relief to the students nor to the teachers. And they're still being tied to those tests. And even though they say they're going to hold the schools and districts harmless, that's not true either. They may not come and give us additional help, like put us on the low 300 reading, you know, that. But once, if they publish grades, if they publish school grades and district grades, this community will not hold us harmless. And their rationale, how they're going to do it, they had so many A schools, B, C, D, and F schools. And regardless of what the test scores are, they're going to have an equal number of A, B, C, D, and F schools. How fair is that? It makes no, it's not logical. But anyway, that's where we're at. School grades should be held in advance because there's a lack of confidence among parents and the public, and certainly a lack of confidence among educators. And that grade derived from the results will actually reflect the performance of the schools or the teachers. There's no confidence in that. Schools gain or school growth scores will not be valid, they will not be reliable, they will not be statistically credible. And as we transition from the FCAT 2 to the new Florida State Standards, they say that they're going to do a correlation, and I say that you can correlate between dogs and cats, but that don't make them equal. And so You know, I just don't have any faith in the correlation between FL2 and the air test. While student performances should be a significant component of a teacher's evaluation, a modification of the percentage of the evaluation based on performance should be considered and phased in as the validity and reliability of the assessment of student performance are established. Not just hit us 1 year, boom. This is your test, this is new test, all these are new tests, boom. This is what you're going to be graded on. This is what your teachers are going to be paid on. Just a real concern of ours. And so this was presented by Superintendent Elia, the Hillsborough Superintendent, to the State Board of Education people last Tuesday in Tampa. And I sent all y'all a copy of that and just wanted to highlight that we are certainly working as hard as we can, addressing that the best we can. Now, some people go overboard and say, you know, we don't need to follow any of the state laws or state rules. And to those people I say, thank you for volunteering to give us $45 million a year, because the state won't if we don't uphold the laws and rules. So you just volunteered to fund the public school system. You know, and I am sworn constitutional officer to uphold the Constitution of the state of Florida. And if I don't, they withhold my paycheck for 1 full year. Lori would be very unhappy about that. But they'd also withhold the funds to the school district, and of course that cannot happen. But that doesn't mean that we can't try to keep working for sensibility. We just can't put up a brick wall and say, we're not going there. But that's not part of it. The other thing which kind of triggered my thought process with questions from Chris and what Ms. Turner had to say is that if a parent calls up here at the district and says, this teacher's not doing this school's not doing this, blah, 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 the first thing we do is direct it back to the school, teachers, principal, because we have not heard the full story. So when you get a phone call, you have not heard the full story. You don't know what that teacher's trying to do, what the school's trying to do. You've heard a concern from the parent, and while they may be a valid concern, you probably haven't heard the full story. An example would be, we had a child in elementary school, I think 3rd grade, maybe 4th, that the teacher had a 504 plan, had you know, some accommodations to be rendered to him. And one of the accommodations was to be tested in a quiet place where they could fully concentrate. The teacher gave the test, the child made an 80 on the test, but there was a child that did make some noise during the test, another child. And the parent went ballistic about, you've set my child up for failure, you're going to destroy my child, they'll never pass with all the noise, you didn't follow the IEP, you didn't follow what you were supposed to do. We'll have your certificate, we're going to get you fired, you won't be employed in this county any longer. Scared the poor teacher to death. And if we can just work together instead of trying to beat each other up, we can accomplish so much more. And so that's the reason why we have to have the full story and know what the principal has done, what the teacher has done, what administration has done, and then let's try to work together for the benefit of that child. It's not about running teachers off. It's about helping students or helping teachers. From our standpoint, helping teachers help the students. Questions, thoughts, concerns?
With
all what's transpired lately, with the opting out in Lee County and what's taking place in Alachua County. Have we ever thought of having a workshop at each of the elementary schools or each of the bigger cities to explain what standardized testing is, and just really publicize this to make sure to get the word out, because there is so much misinformation out there. As Ms. Perkins can attest to, I can, and Mr. Edison last week, just with whether it's Common Core, whether it's what, the new testing that's coming out. I think that would behoove us to go and do something like that too. I realize they do it whenever they have the open houses, but really publicize it and do a campaign to make sure and get the word out, because there's some people that think that the free lunches that we're giving are tied to Common Core and the money that we get or different things like that. So
yeah, and we've talked about that at the county office, and you're certainly right that there's so much misinformation out there, and to try to get the right information out. There are a section of people that I don't care what you do, they're not going to believe you. They got their minds made up. And the problem is, Mr. Coward, is that I agree with about half of what they say. And they're overboard on some things and way off base and don't understand. But I'm not totally against what they're saying. Now, I do think that the governor and the DOE, whoever was responsible, when they changed from the Common Core to the Florida State standards are basically the same, okay, same standard. But what they did, a couple of things that was good in my opinion, is that they put a stop to all of the detailed information about students going to the federal government. The federal government doesn't need all the details about all of our students. And they put a stop to that, and I think that's good. The other thing is they put a lot of the curriculum control back up, and they can say, whoever they are, they can say that these are just standards. That's all they are, standards, and that's what we're going to do. They are. But you cannot have standards stand alone. Circling around those standards are the curriculum, are the evaluations. It's all tied together. You can't say it's just standards. But our kids will be tested on those standards. If we don't try to teach those standards and get our kids to that point, then we have put our kids at a disadvantage. Maybe that in itself is wrong, because what I just said is we got to get our kids to the standards. Now, these standards are what's supposed to make them successful in life. But are we trying to get them to be successful in life, or are we trying to get to a point where we're concerned about our school grades, our district grades, our performance pay for teachers? Is it all about us, or is it about the kids? And that's a concern I have. I want it to be about the kids, not about us. And we should be a byproduct of what the students gain. But getting back to your point, yes, we have discussed several ways of speaking to Rotary clubs, doing community type things to get the information out. Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir. More comment, Mr. Turner?
Just have one or two on here. One, Mr. Superintendent, were you expecting some real bad news this evening? I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 boxes of Kleenex out here in front of us. Has been something along the way there? Okay. And,
It's allergy season.
we got that. What is our, maybe Mr. Coward, whatever, partnership with the CDP, Community Redevelopment Act? What's that entail? It's this letter here says thank you for your partnership.
Some of that deal with the road, remember when they repaved the road and they took some of our property and they enhanced some of the in front. The community built more parking spaces along the front for us. And I think that's basically the all we were involved with in the partnership.
That's good enough.
In years past, also, they paid for the art teacher, right, that we had, so that came out of that CRA money.
Right.
We're having some discussions, maybe not as well, concerning air conditioning the gyms, and obviously none of us that I'm aware of are interested in going in that route. But I did, no, I said, okay, well, I'm speaking out of turn. Myself, listening to that being pretty much cost prohibitive and not unnecessary. That's me.
That's your opinion.
I said that's just me. I think I made that pretty clear.
Just want to make sure I understand.
If I need to, I'll reiterate. My opinion, we do not. It's too cost prohibitive to do all of the gyms. That may not necessary. However, I do understand that there is something different being done in the new gymnasium at Williston, the new school.
Jeff, you may want to do that.
That is
Consider the ventilation in the gym.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. We discussed this not last time, we talked the time before that. And one of the assurances that we wanted to make sure is that there was adequate ventilation in the gym. And current plan, and I wasn't able to meet with them on the 30th when the last conversation, but the problem you have with a lot of gyms, or like Bronson, is that the way it's set up in the afternoon, you have sunlight coming in through the different things, and you have to shut off fans because of the light. So this one here is going to be designed in such a way that you're going to have fans on the west side, but the actual ventilation will be on the east side of the building, which will be the home side, and the loopers, the air will come through there and come through the home stand people.
More to face first.
Yes.
And
I mean,
it'll be
it'll come through the
under
stands, through the bleachers.
It'll be down low. under
Right,
the
down low,
stands.
so the draft will come through the people. And then the fans will be up high on the other side. But
There won't be any windows on the west side.
correct,
There will be windows on the east side.
correct.
And there'll be ventilation
Down low.
under the bleachers, which will allow the air to pass through the people.
Now, whether it's fair or not, they tell me that the home court side will be about 10 degrees cooler than the visitor side.
We can't prove that yet, but I've heard that rumor.
So we make sure that the home side is on the court side.
But it still won't be air conditioned.
I mean, during
Understand.
November, December, January will be.
Yeah.
But I do apologize for the inference that, that we may have all been in court and I probably should have prefaced that with it in my opinion. So I do apologize for that part. And finally, I've looked at this thing on the bus routes, or the changes in route hours for bus drivers, 60+ routes, with as many increases as decreases. And man, that's a lot of routes and a lot of people that get moving in the same direction, in the correct direction. So it's off to the transportation folks down there. Kudos for them.
They really do have a very big job to do. I will say that in 2008, we had 80+ routes, and we're down to few over 60 now. But of course, we're 700 students down.
Yes. All right. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Turner. Ms. Brooks?
No, thank you. No comments, sir.
Scott?
Only thing I'd like to reiterate is if you would make sure to pass information to us as it happens. So I had the unfortunate incident of being asked something by one of our local reporters about a bus accident, and I had no idea that we had a bus accident, so.
I don't know, I am not going to be a sounding board for every event that happens in this district. I did notify the director of that area, and she was fully aware of it. And, my advice to you is to say, I don't know, would you please call the county office? I'm sure they could help
and I understand that, but I think we make decisions at countywide, so I don't think just the board member of that district should be addressed, so.
Well, that's your opinion, it's not mine,
So,
okay? Okay? That's your opinion, that's not mine.
you know, it's truth that we make decisions countywide,
That
so
is true.
I represent everybody, so.
Well, I wasn't referencing that, I was referencing the part that I need to notify every director about every event that happens in this county.
Well, I think, not every event, but I think if we have a bus crash or a bomb threat, I think those would be things that we positive to be let known. I think we as a board should all know that.
Your opinion.
I guess you always have the power, Mr. Coward, if you will implement a policy.
Okay?
That might be a way that could be taken care of.
Yes, that would be.
He can request a policy, but policy would have to be initiated by the superintendent.
The board has no way to
Now, I don't know, Ms. Racings, if that policy, the board has the power to do a policy.
I thought the
and
board
to
said
initiate policy.
The board approves or rejects policy.
The board doesn't have the power to bring the policy to and make policy. The board makes policy.
The board has the right and authority to ask the superintendent to address the situation, to make a policy, to be either approved or rejected by the board.
Mr. Council?
I'm sorry, I'm not able to answer that question. I'm making notes now. I have to get back to you as soon as possible, but I don't know the answer to that off the top of my head.
Now, I really was under the impression that board can bring policy up and have policy written. I know that we've had policies looked into and issues looked into, and I know I've spoken to Mr. Edison on things, and policies are brought to the board usually, and, you know, we review and go over, but I was under the impression that, you know, if we do want to initiate it, it has to be voted on, it has to be a genuine consensus, and so it can't be one person's idea or anything, but to bring that up for us to vote on. No?
No, you can bring it up to, like in this session, say, I would like for you to look at this, Mr. Superintendent, and bring us a policy on this. And then the superintendent would make the recommendation, and the board has the authority to accept or to reject it.
Okay, I would like to look in that too, because I really wasn't clear on that. And I've always been under the impression, you know, we do accept recommendations and that we, you bring them to us as issues and personnel, but the board had the right for, to bring and initiate policy.
Okay.
So let's just clear that up and make sure we're correct on that.
Okay.
Could you excuse me for 1 minute?
Yes.
Mr. Clements, what do you think as a board member as another county?
I think it's a good time for me to stay.
But I know that makes Roy leave the county. He's gonna be quiet.
But I mean, and
You have good counsel here, we'll see what he has to
that's
say.
right, I mean, and it's, you know, I want to be correct and right on it, but I just, in the policy classes that we've taken in the past, that the board could initiate policy and bring that, and that's my understanding from classes. So I do need to be corrected if that's wrong.
Mr. Council, will you make sure that you get us an opinion on that
Yes, sir.
at some point?
Yes, sir.
And the sooner the better.
Understood.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Chair, I would request that, have council contact the chair with that.
I'm sorry, contact?
Well, if he got something, that he'll have to revisit on this level, that David, you, whoever researches that, contact the chair immediately.
Yes, sir.
chair is usually pretty good about that, and that, I'm happy with that.
I can do it, Mr. Whitlock, for you back.
Yeah, I have no problem if you want to copy the board member.
Yes, sir. Oh, well, thank you.
I have no problem, thank you.
I think we had a lull here in the action I was going. I thought maybe that was most of that.
I would like to revisit a situation back then concerning our care here center, et cetera, that we look at an infomercial or something to generate more people taking advantage of it. For me, that's all it is advantage of it. I've met you in there before. Oh, no, like 4 years anyway.
What do you, your initial visit, consent?
Go back in there and check. And get your shots. Get your meds.
Oh, you didn't get 100%.
Well, but even if you got it, you go back and get your med, you know.
Excuse me, Mr. Kirk.
Yes, sir.
But they've got nothing for each of
This is school board law, section 1001.41, general powers of the district school board. The district school board, after considering recommendation submitted by the district school superintendent, shall exercise the following general powers: determine policies and programs consistent with state law, support the adoption consistent to state law, to implement provisions of law, prescribe and adopt standards and policies to provide. And that's, again, prefaced by the district school board after considering recommendations submitted by the district school superintendent shall exercise the following power. Then in 101.49, general powers of district school superintendent. Advise, counsel, and recommend to district school board. Advise, counsel, and counsel with the district school board on all educational matters and recommend to the district school board for action such matters that should be acted upon. Recommend policies, recommend and execute rules, recommend and execute minimum standards. The districts, and then again in 101.51, duties and responsibility of district school superintendent. The district school superintendent shall exercise all power and perform all duties listed below and elsewhere in the law, provided that in so doing he shall advise and counsel with the district school board. The district school superintendent shall perform all tasks necessary to make sound recommendations. The superintendent makes recommendations. The board acts upon those recommendations. They either approve or reject.
Thank you.
And not initiate policies.
No. Superintendent recommends, school board acts upon those recommendations. After considering recommendations submitted by the district school superintendent, the school board exercises the following general powers. 100.141.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. House, you have anything else, sir?
At Value Adjustment Board meeting today, there's only one, so there's 2 proposals, so one will show up. And, so we had that reorganization meeting was today, and actual hearings are next week, and then one's going to be in November. And the other thing is, FSBA, we had the president-elect that were beat in their election, not the general election, but the primary. And so one of our local people, Griffin from Alachua County, is also need some guidance on, whenever the board of directors meeting will be in December, on how we collectively as a board want our voice heard. So on the way of the corporate tax scholarship lawsuit and a few other things. So I just would like direction from the board on what our voice would be whenever I go.
And Ms. Cowper, you get us a list of the things that you're talking about?
I will email those to you, yes, sir.
But we have received those, haven't we?
Yes, so, I mean, it's the.
FSBA platform.
Correct, it's FSBA platform, so.
And also, I'm talking about maybe a condensed version, a lot of book,
Right back to the
Yeah, that's good reading, Jordan.
I'll give you the highlights, so.
Thank you, Mr. Cowper.
Yes.
Only thing I have two things. One, based on the calendar, FTE week is coming pretty quick. How are we looking? Do we have any idea how we're looking?
It looks to me like we're pretty flat, which in itself is good since we projected a 72 student decrease.
Holding eight. And the only other thing was a few meetings back, we discussed, the old voice brought this to our attention, is like a auction website for surplus items. Have we figured anything out on that?
Well, we have a couple options. We have discussed it. The Citrus County model is an independent software vendor. We could, I think it's like $3,500 a year maintenance fee and stuff. But the problem with that is your audience might be limited to just people in our county. And there's a site that the University of Florida is part of. It's actually larger than the university. Other governmental entities are on that site. And we're exploring the possibility of launch that. That would just give us more exposure. That's about the only difference we see. But we haven't pulled the trigger on each one of those.
I saw that thing through.
We've done a little exploration, and we are going to try to put that in place this year.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you. I got a couple of things. Mr. Superintendent, on this visit here on May 19th, we're going to include bullet for that. Bullet, bullet.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
We will add that.
Good, thank you. A couple other questions. Mr. Clemens, on this budget, what are purchase services?
Contracted services.
And so we don't have any, hardly any of them anymore?
No, we do have, but we hired a person, I believe, this year, didn't we, Ken?
Yes, we did. We had
But you likely should have hired them like 5 or 10 years ago.
Well, that's not all the difference. That's some of the difference. Maybe Dr. Hawk can speak to that issue. That's where a lot of the contracted services are.
Our contracted services is with our physical therapists, we've always contracted with physical therapists as long as I've been here, even longer before I came in. And we are contracted with one SLP, speech language pathologist. We just hired a school board part-time person.
Thank you. And, Mr. Tyson, like, I know in the most you have to go in Marion County to pick up students. How far do you go into Marion County to pick up students?
We don't.
So you don't go past the line anymore?
No.
Is there a part where we cut across to get from one side of Marion?
I don't know. I don't think we've gone into Marion County at all, to my knowledge.
We don't pick anybody up.
No.
So that's just procedure, right?
Right. It's been like that for a long time.
Okay.
They used to, I guess it was maybe 8 years ago or so, and he started pulling them
A
back.
parent asked me that a couple of days ago, and I told him I'd find out, so I'm finding out.
I remember there was one route where it was shorter to cut across Marion, you just went across Marion and get back in Levy.
Right.
But we didn't pick it, I don't know if that route's
So we got students that live in Marion County that go to Williston, but we don't get them up.
Well, if they want to come to the bus stop in Levy.
Levy County?
Yeah, but they have to have permission from the superintendent, and then they can come over and we'll get on the bus stop nearest to them, and we'll bring them in.
Okay, thank you. One other thing I have here is a barbecue Friday night, homecoming is looking, but I go to the homecoming game. Homecoming. We're still gonna fix our scoreboard.
Yeah, good job.
Any other comments, remarks? We got anything to say?
Yes.
All right, so we're gonna adjourn and then we're gonna reconvene. Meeting adjourned. Thank you for coming.